Hey, everybody, it's today, and you know what that means. That's right. It's time for another Sarcastic Distractions, an interesting podcast for interesting people featuring the Gentleman Society of Podcasting. As always, my name is Harvey, and I'm joined with my heterosexual life date mate, David Shergold, and the ever
Hello.
loving AJ.
Howdy.
And today's topic of conversation is transitions. Yes, transitions in life. And Dave today is going to take us on a journey of what that means and kind of what we've gone through. And everybody's probably gone through this in life. Wouldn't you say, Dave?
Well, just certainly pieces of it, definitely. Like we're going to start all the way back to that first day of school when I started kindergarten. So it was great. I walked
Wow.
to school. No,
That's like a bad joke.
no,
But yes.
again, yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be fun to kind of just talk about all that stuff. And yeah, Dave, why don't you just rip right into it?
Yeah, sure. All right. Yeah, so my joke was, of course, about public school because, of course, everybody's life goes through those wonderful transitions. The classic one, certainly for our region, Ontario, Canada, where, yeah, public school, high school, what are you doing after the high school, going into jobs, having girlfriends, all these fun things. And really, for me today, it was more about that as you get older, I was in that spot where nothing had changed. Certainly I'd had children, first one 12-ish years ago, second one 10 years ago. And it was one of those things that, yeah, those were big things that happened. But other than that, nothing else big changed. And then, of course, basically I went to that whole normal worky person that would, be at work from, 8 a.m., 6 p.m. to now suddenly the guy that's always at home. And then, at the same time, many other people have experienced similar things because of COVID. But in my case, no, I'm not even working. It's for the last 9-ish months, basically. Yeah, I'm at home and I make sure the children have lunches and dinners and, get to have all that interesting fun with them 100% of the time, of course, even through the summertime where, yeah, they loved it. We'll ignore anything that they say about how much they hated it. They loved that I was here constantly, but really, yeah, that's kind of what I wanted just to have that fun little chat about, just that those big things that happen in life to change it.
Well,
Mine's really about that context. Yeah, certainly that 17 years, I technically worked for the same organization. My first official job after college, junior software developer. I started on a 6-month contract. And when I finally exited, and I haven't, other fun stuff going on, but my last position was the director of custom software development. So it went from, I know. So yeah, it's been quite the transition over those 17-ish years of good times.
AJ, what about some big transitions in your life?
Oh wow. Moving from a small town to a big city. That was a pretty big transition in my life. I grew up in a very small town. At the time I lived there was only a population of 10,000.
And what town was that?
Kenora, Ontario, up by the Manitoba border. And yeah, very small town, nice, a lot of nature, a lot of things to do on the lake and in the bush and stuff like that. And then I decided to come to school down here. And yeah, going from, it's almost like a culture shock, really. It's there's a lot of things, but because you grew up where you did, like where I did, I didn't feel like there was a whole bunch to do. Like you had to drive half an hour, 45 minutes to actually go to a lake, or the differences between what people call the bush or the forest here. Whereas where I grew up, the bush and the forest was you could get fucking lost for days. Down in a larger populated area, I find they call patches of trees the bush or the forest. Adulting, if you will.
Yeah, it is hard. It's a real bitch.
Yeah, and then those are probably the major ones. Transitioning from being a single guy to having a wife and a kid, that's
a big one.
I was gonna say,
that one I understand.
I was gonna say, is your son come into play here?
Oh yeah, for sure. And then I took on the role of being the stay-at-home dad when Max was born. Nikki took her year off there, or year and half or whatever, however long it was. And yeah, I decided to be a stay-at-home dad. So I took care of Max for 4 years, and then he went to junior kindergarten, and that was threw me for a loop, I guess, because like, what am I gonna do? I've been in charge of, like Dave said, feeding this kid. I guess different situation, but feeding the kid and dressing him and playing with him and hanging out with him and stuff like that. It's kind of like having a mini best friend to, the kid's gone for 8 hours a day. So I transitioned into a lot of napping.
Pro napper here.
How about your transitions through life?
So many. Well, marriage was definitely big. I don't think I was ever gonna get married. I think it's true, right? Like, I mean, even when I was with an ex-partner, I don't know if I really took it seriously, like because there was an idea that we were going to get married, but we weren't right for each other. And even when I met my wife, I was still not like, nah, I gotta travel. That's what I'm gonna do. And sure enough, she wanted to travel with me. And one thing led to another. And yeah, you're right. That transition is difficult from being by yourself and then constantly having to worry for worrying about other people. I think another big transition, this is going to sound weird. Dave will probably relate to this a little bit more than AJ, but when I started driving, I didn't start driving till my 30s.
Okay.
Right? So transitioning from skateboarding for a majority of my life, public transit's never been a problem.
Yep.
And
and if I needed
exactly. And if I need to go somewhere that's out of town, usually I had a ride. Not realizing I'm just taking advantage of people driving, but that's
it would have been nice to have some help driving to New York. That's for damn sure.
That would have. Yeah, that was all on you, wasn't it? Yeah, it
yes,
was.
Sir. No, I'm just kidding, man.
No, it's all good. Yeah, I think those are big, and I think job transitions are huge. Like Dave's speaking of, I think for me, every time I've swapped out of a job and either was jobless or went into another job, it's always been a big pivotal point in my life. There's always something that's like, oh wow, and I've been fortunate enough to work a variety of jobs in the contact centers. I've had a chance to work in video production. I've had a chance to work in just all over the field. And you have to kind of reshape your mindset and be adaptable to the situation at hand, right? So I think that's a big thing. And traveling, I would say definitely the biggest adjustment was fuck that RV, guys. Honestly, that was heavy. Like, I don't have kids, but like having to live with your partner in a very small space and rely on each other, like it's an extra step, an extra level of connection. And if you don't have it, you're not existing with each other, right? So we learned very quick. And it's funny you say, Dave, when you're talking about how you felt like really busy when you first kind of transitioned to home. Same thing. Bex and I, for like the first 2 months on the road in the RV, like we're waking up at like 7 a.m. They're like, well, it's like to get stuff done. And it's like, okay, we got to do this. We got to do that. I was like, wait, what? Why? Like, why do we have to do this? We're traveling. But that's just how long it takes to kind of get those, modes out of your body and be like, oh, okay. All right. This is new. I got to adapt to new problems.
And that's what I find nice about those transitions, as challenging as they can be. And oy vey, we all have experienced our challenges of transitions. Is that when you get to the other side of it, and it's kind of you know what? I got some bumps and bruises getting here, but fuck yeah, this is
Dave,
all right.
There's an interesting transition. You being the primary quote unquote breadwinner of the family, transitioning into Shan being that. How does that affected you? How does that feel? Being she's the one that's kind of working and pulling things in.
So certainly no issues or concerns on the having. We are fortunate in that level, so no issues there. More the joke between us is that we had that transition where I would make dinner all the time. I would make I'll, am I honest? Back I would go walk and get groceries because again having fun with the license and things like that. So things like that, I would just kind of go and do. It was good times. It's a little funny right now because we're on a special health plan that she's more the expert in. So she's kind of retaken over the dinner. I help it on the cooking and everything, of course, but the what we're eating right now, we're going through some fun. It's a good experience. That'll be a whole other show.
One other transition I want to talk about, because you guys have experience in this than I do, and you kind of touched upon it, but a little bit deeper. Kids. That's that's a whole transition, that's a whole world that I want to know both your accounts on the transition, but is it something like gradual, or is there like an initial kind of blunt force, shall we say, moment where you're like, oh, this is okay.
You first, AJ, or me first?
Well, yeah, I'll go first. I think it might be different for somebody who doesn't plan to have kids. Like we planned, we talked about it, we decided, X has to happen before we move on with a family and everything like that. But there is still a moment of realization, I guess, like, shit, this is going to be hard. This is going to be different. This is going to be, there's going to be another human in our bubble forever now. Well,
and he won't leave.
Hopefully not forever, but he can go have his own bubble at some point in time, hopefully. But I wouldn't say it's probably much different for somebody who gets pregnant, quote unquote, by accident, right? Like there's no planning, there's no preparation. Like they always say you can never prepare to have a kid. You're never prepared to have a kid, but you can at least be prepared with the idea of having, like I said, another human, drunken monkey midget on acid running around your house.
What about you, Dave?
Mine's much the same as AJ. Certainly for our first kid, that one was planned, tried for, all the good times. So expected, and we had, fun, up down like most things with kids. But yeah, everything was good. Shan did stay, took the time off. And then, of course, when she starts to go back to work, that was when we did our trip to Vegas. And not everything you do in Vegas stays in Vegas. Because that's where our second, was likely developed, at least started. And then after that, that's when she more transitioned out of, doing the photography and things like that constantly. Did the stay home with both of them while till they're 5. Then, of course, did the school, the natural nutritionist, and then the opening of the business, and, of course, all those things. And that's the one benefit, certainly, that, I have from a family perspective, because, as we talked about, I still work constantly, the same job, certainly took time off when the kids were around, tried to spend as much time with them. But it was more, that thing that Shan had the majority of the responsibilities around, but we have since flipped. But yeah, certainly having kids, as much as you planned, and we did, and it didn't really matter in the second one because by that point we had a lot of leftovers from the first. It was all good. You still have all that fun of transitioning, doing things differently, and even between the two of them, they're different. And as much as I like to say, they get older and it's easier, and you don't have to worry about babysitters as much, but now you just worry a bit more, and you're like, I'll get you a cell phone, but if I message you on that cell phone, you message me back.
It was really hard. It's a really hard transition when all your friends have kids and you don't. You're like, man, who am I going to play with now?
Hey, and again, it's one of those, and it's easy for me to, I guess, express, but it's because my sister, she had kids before me even, and it was one of those things that there was a little bit of funniness at the beginning, but I have to admit, like, even before we had kids, it was one of those things of we would go put her kid, she only had the one at the time, down, his nap, all those loveliness, and then we would go to the backyard and sit chit chat like it was old school.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You do your best to try and kind of, and it's one of those things you just work through. Yes, there's more responsibilities, more things, but you know what? That happens. Even if you don't have kids, as you get older, that happens. You have to pay your own bills. Chris, you have to pay your own bills. Yeah.
What interesting. And I mean, we can talk about it until we're blue in the face. This is probably 2020 was the biggest year of transition, regardless of what stage of life you were in. And it's just really cool to see how our reactions to how our lives have kind of changed moving forward. And I think the world the way it is today adds like another layer of how hard it must be to transition from one position to the next. Like I was thinking the other day, could you imagine trying to move right now? Just move places. just to move from one apartment to or house or whatever. Like that would be very, very difficult, I think.
Yes, it'd be difficult from my perspective. Well, I've seen 3 houses went up, sold on in my neighborhood, and just watching people move and the pricing that those things went for because of everything going on. Yeah, I'm happy that that is not something I need to worry about right now.
Too much. And to be honest, like I don't think the transition we're talking about, like before you're a homeowner, you're rich. And then after you're homeowner, you're broke because the housing crisis has jacked prices up. As we wrap up, any final notes on transitions and changes? And I'm going through changes. Oh wait, I want to get copyrighted.
Changes. Yeah, from my perspective, the big thing, and we kind of already said it earlier in the show, which is, yeah, you're going to bump along the change, but make sure it's the change. We're never fortunate, not necessarily always fortunate enough to have that change be exactly what we want, but certainly continue to improve it to be what you want for yourself, your family, your friends, all those lovely things. Keep working, kicking ass at it, all those great things. Like, because even once you get to that spot, you're like, you can't stop. You have to keep rolling. Do enjoy it. Take that moment of sitting back, having a beverage of your choice, chilling with peeps, and be like, yeah, and then move on.
Yeah, keep moving forward, right? Essentially,
yeah.
keep on trucking.
Keep on. Yeah, I think that's good advice. Like, I mean, for listeners out there, life's not easy. It's not supposed to be, but you can enjoy the good times when they're there, and mitigate
the bad ones.
Work through the bad ones. And if you're lucky enough to pay attention to your life and situation, then you can hopefully pick some of those transitions and makes it a little easier to roll with them. But when it doesn't happen, just remember peaks and valleys. People, peaks and valleys. That's what life's all about. Sometimes great, sometimes not. So, it's pretty awesome. Well, I think we're about done here, gentlemen, unless there's any other tidbits you guys would like to ask. Can we do 2 things, though? Let's plug AJ and Nikki's band.
Oh, the Mad Moxies. Mad Moxies
Nice.
band. I'm pretty sure. God, if I even knew all the socials and stuff like that. Just
don't
search
worry,
Mad Moxies band on YouTube. Because if you don't put band at the end of it, you're gonna come up with a whole bunch of Borderlands stuff. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. We don't do the tweeters. So
you do, but that's okay.
Oh, we do. See, I'm not in charge of that kind of stuff. We also I'm going to do a shameless plug for my studio, RPM Studios. That's where this lovely audio is coming from today. It's all recorded.
And will be our home once we're out of COVID.
Yes,
we're out of lockdown.
Yes, it will. It will hopefully be the Sarcastic Distractions HQ, if you will. And so nothing really happening right now to tell you about. We've got Mad Moxies has a couple tunes up on the YouTubes if you want to go check it out and give us a thumbs up. You can give us a thumbs down if you really want, but it's not preferable.
You can click the links in our description to see what the Mad Moxies are up to and all the good stuff. So.
Down below, yo.
And Dave, you want to throw a shout out for Miss Shannon's kombucha company?
Sure. Yeah, you have to kind of be in the London, Ontario, and extended region, Grand Bend, but certainly for a Culture Shock kombucha, that is the best kombucha you're going to get.
Really is. Making some waves.
That's right.
Never had the kombucha. Never had it. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, in a future episode. But I've never partaken in the booch, if you will.
The booch. There you go. Well, the next time that we get ourselves actually physically together, which knock on wood, maybe 2-ish weeks, 3-ish weeks, we'll make sure we set up a show where we do maybe a quick. Here we go. Here's kombucha with some flavors. We'll get Shan on, and there you go.
That'd be great.
I like it. I smell a sponsorship.
She's gonna love that suggestion.
Exactly. And on that note, let's wrap things up here and be done. I think this is the 3rd time I've attempted to wrap it up. So here we are. And I just want to say to our listeners out there, thanks so much for being with us. And if you are taking the time to hear what we got to say, we so much appreciate it. But also, just so you know, you matter. You are important. We cannot send you as much love as you desire. So just want to let you know that. Thank you. Just thank you for everybody. Until next time, I've been Harvey with Mr. Dave Shergold. and AJ Marsh. Yeah.
Doobly doobly.
And this has been another Sarcastic Distraction. Until next time, everybody.
Take care, all.
Bye bye.
Bye now.